Welcome back to Chapter 2. We are in Part 2 of Chapter 2. We are on slide 28 entitled Student Diversity. And as you can see on this slide, these are the topics that are covered in Chapter 2. And we're going to begin with the third topic, teaching students with learning differences. And we're going to be exploring in the next several slides the concept of multiple intelligences by Howard Gardner. If you go to slide 29, what does intelligence mean to you? And often we think of intelligence as an IQ score, a quantitative number that we can use to determine how intelligent someone is. However, according to this section of the text, intelligence could involve many talents and skills. It can go well beyond just a number on a test. What talents and skills do you possess that you feel make you intelligent? Does the word intelligence capture what we as humans can do? And in this particular slide, one of the lenses in which we can view intelligence is through abstract thinking and reasoning. We can view it through problem solving. We can also view intelligence through the capacity to acquire knowledge. But there are other ways in which we can view intelligence. Now this particular slide has three categories. One category is up at the top is issues. The next category to the right of that is description, and then to the right of that is your thoughts. And what I'd like you to do is to look at each issue and the description, and then jot down on a piece of paper some of your own thoughts relative to that issue. So for example, under nature and nurture, is intelligence determined, or is it fixed? Or is intelligence impacted by the environment? Is it nature? Is it nurture? Or is it a combination? So jot down your thoughts relative to that issue, and then go on to the cultural bias issue, and then the single versus multiple dimensions of intelligence issue. This is just to sort of get your mind thinking about intelligence and perhaps the different ways in which we can look at intelligence and the different factors that impact our view of intelligence. If we go to slide 31, there's a picture of Howard Gardner, and he has a perspective on intelligence that is different from the traditional way in which we see intelligence. If you look on page 47 in your text, you can find a description of those intelligences, of the multiple intelligences. Slide 32 basically lists the 9 ways, according to Gardner, which humans can show intelligence. So if we look at the, I'd say, at the 1 o'clock position, we have what we would call intrapersonal. Intrapersonal is self-smart. It's people who have a strength in being able to understand themselves, understand their emotions, understand how they act. They're reflective people. So Howard Gardner believes that's one form of intelligence. At the 2 o'clock position, there's existential, deep question smart, people that are able to think about the big questions, the what is life types of questions, and being able to analyze that, think about it, and reflect on those questions. As we look at the 3 o'clock position, we have people that are visual or spatial or picture smart. These could be your artists, people that are ability to draw, be able to see things and draw what they see, or express themselves through painting, through art, through drawing. We have at the 4 o'clock position bodily kinesthetic, which is body smart. Many of your athletes may have this type of intelligence. Dancers. If we look at the 6 o'clock position, we have interpersonal. That's the people smart, the ability to be able to develop relationships, to be able to get along with people, to be able to read people. If we look at the 7 o'clock position, we have what we call verbal linguistic smart or word smart, people that are able to use words, use the language to be able to express themselves in a meaningful way. We have at the 9 o'clock position logical, mathematical, or logic smart. I'm sure you all know people that have a passion for math, love math, are able to do math and explain it. We have the 10 o'clock position, musical, or music smart, people that have a talent for playing instruments or singing. And we have at the 11 o'clock position, naturalist or nature smart, people that have a passion for the environment. They are able to sense, they have an intuitive sense for what is occurring in the natural environment, and have, as I mentioned, a passion to learn more from the natural environment. So according to Gardner, these are all ways in which we can express our intelligences. And notice as you look at this concept map, you can see that some of these intelligences are what we would call introspective. They cause us to look in. We have some that are related to interactive, in other words, between people, and we have some that are that require the use of analytical skills. On slide 33, just a question for you to think about and post. What implications does Howard Gardner's theory of intelligence have on teaching? So I'd like you to just take a minute and think about that, and then post your ideas on how multiple intelligences might impact the way in which a teacher teaches, or the way in which a teacher sees her students in the classroom. Slide 34, entitled Student Diversity. If we take a look at the next topic, it's students with exceptionalities. Teaching students with exceptionalities will be the next topic, and we're going to discuss the needs of students with learning disabilities as well as students who are gifted. Gifted students also fall into this topic range. If we look on slide 35, Public Law 94-142, the Individuals with Disability Act, or IDEA, provided a means for all students, especially those with disabilities, to be able to obtain a high quality and free public education. There's the reflective monkey, and what do we mean by exceptionality? What do we mean by special help? It's important to be thinking about those terms. On slide 36, there is a slide that has the concepts category up at the top on the left-hand side, and three concepts are IDEA, and then the second concept is mainstreaming, and the next concept is learning least restrictive environment. And then you can see the definition of each one of those, and then an example. I'm going to tell you just a brief story that illustrates each one of these. If we take a look at IDEA, when I was in junior high school, there were three brothers by the name of the Marshall brothers, and this would have been grades 6, 7, and 8. Marshall brothers had, as I can recall, lots of problems emotionally and probably academically. We never actually saw them in our classrooms. They would show up in the morning, they walked to school, and then they would disappear for the rest of the day, and then we would see them at the end of the day. There was a classroom behind the gym, very, very small classroom. It was a teacher, and what I can recall is that the Marshall brothers went into the gym, went back to that one room, stayed there all day with the teachers. I don't know what they did. Hopefully they had a good quality learning experience. But we never saw the Marshall brothers. They were never included in any other class, any other activities, whether it was gym or music. They were basically in that room all day. And the IDEA, Individual Disability Act, provides that states that each child shall have a right to a free, appropriate public education, and or a FAPE is what we would call that. In the Marshall Brothers case, I would want to stress that it should be a quality education. Back in the 60s when this occurred, I don't think what they were receiving was a quality education. Often many of those students, like the Marshall brothers, back and during that time, it was very easy for a school system to say, you know what, we just can't handle these particular students, they need to stay home. Well, IDEA was put in place to make sure that all students, such as Marshall Brothers, had a chance to have an education. And again, I take that step further. I would say it should be a quality education. Mainstreaming high school exclusion story. I had a good friend who's just retiring now as a high school principal, and I asked him to reflect back on his role as a high school principal, and I said, well, if you had to do one thing differently, what would you do? And he had mentioned that one year he had decided to put all the students that were special education in one wing of the building. In this way, the teachers that taught special ed would be able to interact, and he thought it would be much easier for the teachers if they were all together in a group or department. Well, what happened very quickly was that those students that were in that wing became ostracized, and the teachers became isolated from the other teachers. And he had said that if he had to do one thing over again, he would have never isolated those students or those teachers. He would have strategically placed them throughout the building, which he did the following year. So when we take a look at mainstreaming, we're looking at the individual needs of the student and doing our best to see if we can include them in as much as possible in programs and activities and events that are consistent with their needs, and to work to avoid placing students in segregated settings. Least restrictive environment. Back when I was a principal, I had a young man by the name of Derek, and this particular student was placed in what we would call a self-contained classroom. Again, he was in a classroom for the most part with one teacher and with a group of students for the entire day. Did not have an opportunity to get out and experience other programs, other activities, and Derek became a behavior problem very, very quickly. And I remember sitting down with Derek and asking him, what is it that we need to do to help him better meet his needs? I think he might have been in 4th or 5th grade. And he said, get me out of that class that I'm in. He said, I'm a lot smarter than what you think I am. And he says, if you put me in a regular classroom, he said, I'll show you what I know. And we took Derek up on that and found a teacher in the classroom that we thought would best meet his needs, and he just took off. So finding that least restrictive environment is very important. Slide 37 kind of goes along with those two terms, adaptive fit and inclusion, kind of goes along with those two stories. So I'd like you to take a look at those slides and be familiar with those terms. Slide 38, if you see page 49, for help, and post this question as response 5 on forum 2. And the question is, what type of support is available for classroom teachers who work with students with exceptionalities? And name at least 8 supports. And if you look on page 49, you'll be able to find those supports quite easily. Slide 39, there are many ways students with exceptionalities are supported. Co-teaching, or teachers working together in one classroom, is a team approach that is usually effective. Generally, the co-teacher may be a specialist or a special education teacher with special skills that can assist students with exceptionalities. There may be students who are not in a special program but still need assistance. These students may qualify for special reading programs or work with a co-teacher. Collaborative approaches such as response to intervention, or RTI, are important as well. RTI relates to having a team of people who take ownership of a child, and you'll learn more about this in your exceptional learner class. They identify and implement very specific interventions that are used to correct learning problems. Often additional instructional time is provided for students through RTI. The next slide further identifies what may occur with the use of RTI. And RTI, or response to intervention, makes use of what we call the PDSA cycle. The P stands for plan, And a team gathers to analyze data on the student to see what strengths and needs of the students are. Once that information is compiled and discussed, a plan is formed to address the academic needs the student may have. The D stands for do. In other words, once we develop a plan, do has to do with implementing the plan through instructional interventions and monitoring the progress of the student. And study, after perhaps a month, month and a half, or maybe 2 months, we'll look at the results of the student, and we'll study those results and bring them back to the team to see if the intervention or what we did over that period of time worked. Questions the team may ask are, does the plan need to be adjusted? Did the intervention work? And then the last piece of the plan is act, which really means redo or act again. And then after that feedback is given in terms of did the interventions work, did the plan work, the plan is readjusted, re-implemented with the recommendations, and then the cycle begins again. Take a look at this question. If you were in charge of designing a plan for addressing the needs of students with exceptionalities, what would be included in that plan? So think about that, and then go on to slide 42. And 42 will explain the answers to that question. What are the things that you would look for? Well, the 6 items listed on the right-hand side of the slide represent the key elements of what we would call an IEP, Individual Education Plan. An IEP is a legal document that's used for students in special education, and IEPs are designed to help provide social and academic support to students with learning disabilities. Now the trend is to mainstream students with mild to moderate learning disabilities into the regular classroom. And what are your thoughts about mainstream? When is it appropriate and when is it not appropriate? Okay, this concludes part 2 of chapter 2, and the last segment will be part 3 of chapter 2, and that will begin momentarily.